Hello everyone! In today's video we're starting a new series of gel polish basics, or just nail basics in general I guess. I'm going to be aiming to put out a new video on this series about every week or so. This first one is going to be all about the nail prep that I do for gel polish and basically any kind of nail enhancement. I'm going to go through the tools first, but if you don't want to see my explanation of which tools I'm using, you can just skip to the timestamp on screen and you'll go straight into the actual prep of the nails. So first tool here is a set of nail clippers, which I'm sure everybody has seen before. I'm actually not going to be using them today, but if you have a lot of length on your nails that you want to cut down, I would recommend to trim them with some clippers or scissors first, and then you can go in and file just to save you some time. But as you can see, my nail length is not that long. I do have a little bit of discrepancy in length, but I'll just fix that with a file. Next tool here is a cuticle pusher. It's got two ends. This one is a metal cuticle pusher. I do recommend if you're a beginner that you maybe start off with a wooden cuticle pusher or a plastic one, just so that you get the hang of it without causing any damage, because metal cuticle pushers can cause damage if they are used incorrectly, but if you use them correctly they are great. I do use both ends of this tool, but again, if you're not confident, you can just use the cuticle pusher end and leave the knife end for later on when you're more confident. This tool here is a Cuticle Stone, or I think I've also heard it called a pterygium stone. It's basically like a pumice stone for your nails. It's not completely necessary, you can live without this in your prep, but it is great for getting all of the dry dead skin off your nail plate. If you have a problem with chipping or lifting from the cuticle, this may be a good tool to integrate into your nail prep step. Just to let you know, to sharpen this, you just use a file. This one's just an 80 grit file that I had lying around from when I used to do acrylic nails, but any file will sharpen it up, and eventually as you sharpen it it'll get shorter, but it will last you a long time, especially if you're only doing your own nails. The next thing here is a nail file. This one is really old and I probably need to throw it away and get a new one, but I have not got a new one, and at the moment everything's in lockdown so I can't get a new one. But this used to be a 180 grit file, I believe. Can't really read that there, but I'd say it's more like a 220, and I'd recommend a 220 grit file for your natural nails. Next we have just a white buffing block just to remove the shine off the nails. We're not going to do any crazy etching to the nails, but we do need to remove the shine because gel does not like to stick to shiny surfaces. Next here we have some cuticle clippers. Now these again I would suggest only using if you know what you're doing or kind of building up to using them. Today I'm mostly just going to use them to remove little hangnails and bits of skin that I can easily get to. You can also use these to trim the cuticle, but I do not in this video, and I'll explain more why later on. This is just a spray bottle filled with isopropyl alcohol. I know it says brush cleaner, but it is just isopropyl alcohol in that bottle. I use that to dehydrate the nail plate, and also if you have any inhibition layers that you need to remove, tacky layers, but we'll get onto that more in the next episode, which is gel polish application. I also have a little pump bottle that is filled with acetone. I could use this to dehydrate the nail as well. If you only have one or the other, you would need the alcohol for application. The acetone you only need for removal, but both are interchangeable to use as a dehydrator for your nail before you apply any polish. So now we're getting into the actual prep of the nail. I'm going to start with my metal cuticle pusher, and I am pushing back my cuticles. I'm doing this very gently. Keep in mind that I am doing this with my left hand, so if anything looks a bit off, that is why. My left hand being my non-dominant hand. I'm just gently pushing back the cuticles. Now it has been a long time since I've done anything to this hand, so there is a lot of dead skin on my nail plate. My cuticles are not too grown down my nails, like there is a lot of dead skin on the nail, but the actual living tissue is not grown too far down my nail. If your living tissue, the epinecium, has grown down your nail, you might want to, a few days before you do your manicure, just in the shower, just gently push those cuticles back so that there's not as much work for you to do when you're doing these prep steps. I would like to mention that I do a completely dry prep. I would avoid doing your nails, if you have just washed the dishes with no gloves, or you've just had a shower or bath, anything that involves soaking your hands in water, because if your hands and your nails are wet, your gel polish is not going to apply as nicely as if you've got nice dry nails. You can see on my ring finger and my pinky finger that I have quite a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, I guess like the epinecium is, as I push it back, you can see that it's turning white and signifying that it is dead non-living tissue. So that is something that I could clip off if I chose to, but later on in this video I'll explain to you what I do with that. But at the moment I'm just gently pushing back the living tissue off my nail plate so that I've got as much nail plate showing, giving me more space to work with for my application, and also uncovering all of the dead skin on my nail plate that I need to remove. Just here showing you that the angle I'm using the tool, you don't want to go in at this angle, because at this angle you can gouge into your nail and also hurt your finger. So you want to be kind of parallel to your nail. You can see that my nails have a curve to them, so I'm just using my cuticle pusher parallel to the curve at the back, like towards my cuticle area, and that's how I'm pushing my cuticles back. I'm now going to flip my tool around and use the other end of the tool to remove some more dead skin from the nail plate. Pushing my cuticles back has kind of uncovered more dead skin on my nail plate that I need to remove. The dead skin was always there, but using the cuticle pusher has kind of uncovered or lifted the edges of it so you can see it and it's more visible. I will mention that this nail I did trap in a door a few weeks ago, so if you see any bruising, that's what it's from. You want to be careful with this step as well. You do not want to be gouging your nail. It is a sharp tool. It's not sharp as a knife, but it could cause damage if you're not careful with it. You can skip this step if you want to, but as you can see, it gets off a lot of skin, and any skin that is left on your nail plate is going to interfere with your gel polish adhering to your nail, so you want to make sure that you get off every last bit of skin. If you're having trouble with lifting or chipping from the cuticle, most likely the problem is there is skin on your nail plate and that's interfering with the gel polish's adhesion to your nail plate. So I like to use as many steps as I can to make sure that all the skin is removed from my nail, and that includes going down to the rest of the nail, because although the cuticle is growing, like the dead skin is starting to grow out from your cuticle area, it does grow the whole way down the nail. So if you haven't had any product on your nail for a while, the dead skin can go all the way down to the free edge. So you've got to make sure that there is absolutely zero skin left on that nail plate and you have got it all off, or as much off as you physically can. This is why I spend so much time getting rid of all of this dead skin. I think most of my prep time is spent removing cuticle. Obviously, if you've had product recently on your nails, you won't have as much cuticle, but like I said, it has been a long time since I have had any product on these nails, so there is a fair bit of cuticle. And I want to make sure I focus efforts on the sides of the nail as well, because those are where skin tends to build up, because obviously the top of your nail plate is exposed to surfaces, so you'll brush up against things and that can take skin off the nail. Just natural buffing motion, just when you rub your hand against your jeans or into pockets and things like that, that naturally removes a bit of the skin. But obviously down the sides of the nail, that area is not exposed to as much of a natural buffing motion, and it can kind of gather skin down in those side areas. If you're interested how I did the nails on my other hand, go ahead and check out that video. I'll link it in the description and in the cards. I'm now going in with the Pterygium stone, or the Cuticle Stone, and again I'm going to use that to remove more cuticle, more dead skin on the nail plate. This is not a completely necessary step. You could skip this and do all of your cuticle work with your cuticle knife and your cuticle pusher, but for me this does give me more peace of mind knowing that I have done everything I can to get all of the dead skin off the nail. This can also slightly etch the nail plate, so it's starting the work that your buffer is going to finish off later, which is quite good because it can be difficult to get your buffer right into the cuticle and sidewall areas, because obviously a buffer is a bit larger, so this does help in that way. But you do want to be careful and be gentle with this tool, because if you push too hard you can scratch the nail and cause damage. But that's pretty much with any tool that you use. It's not necessarily the tool that is causing the damage, but the person using the tool. So everything is about being gentle. None of this should hurt, and if anything is hurting, then you just need to take a take a little break and come in a little bit gentler. I find it hard personally to be gentle with my left hand because I just don't have as much control over it, but I managed it for this preparation, and you can see how much skin is coming off those nails, and that's great because that skin is what would cause problems with that application in the next episode. Alright, so now I'm going in with my file, and sorry about this footage, it's pretty terrible footage of filing, but it's quite difficult to capture that, especially when you're filing with your non-dominant hand. But I just wanted to include this just to mention that you do need to file your free edge, even if you're not going to be taking the length down. You need the end of the free edge of your nail to not be shiny. Even if you are not taking the length down, you can either just run the file across once or twice, or use your buffer when we go on to the buffing step, just to make sure that the nail free edge is ready for gel polish application. If you don't do this step, you may find that your gel starts to chip prematurely at the free edge, and nobody wants that. Now it's time to buff the nails, and I'm just going in with my white sponge buffer and just gently buffing the nails. I just want to remove the shine from my nails. I don't want to buff my nails smooth or anything like that. I think you'll be able to see later in the video that my nails do still have their natural ridges, but I want to buff away any shininess that is on the nail. You can see there I'm also buffing the free edge of the nail just to, again, like I said in the previous clip, make sure that the free edge of the nail is not shiny and that it gives my polish the best chance of adhesion. You can see there that you can still see the natural ridges on my nails, but the nails are no longer shiny. So now I'm just taking a wipe and I'm spraying it with my isopropyl alcohol. This is a lint-free wipe because I don't want to get any fuzzies on my nail if I can avoid it. So I'm just going to use this to clean my nail. It's going to take away all of the dust from my preparation, and it's also going to dehydrate my nail and remove any oil or dirt on my nail plate. If there is any oil on your nail plate, then it's going to interfere with gel polish application. So we want to make sure that we remove all dirt, oil, dust, anything that can interfere with gel polish application. So you can see my nails are looking quite dry and not looking that nice, to be fair. The skin around them is also dehydrated, but don't worry about that because we just want to make sure that we've removed all oil and dirt and dust and contamination from the nail plate so that it is ready for gel polish application. I'm just going to show you how I use the nippers to nip away some of my dry skin. I would not recommend doing this step if you are not confident. You can see on my ring finger and also on my pinky finger that I have white dead skin all around my epinecium. So that would be okay to cut off, but I would recommend you do not cut it off unless you have been trained to do so. While it may not look exactly how you want it to, leaving that dry dead skin there, the risk you take by trimming it off, if you trim too much off, you open yourself up to infection, and if you get an infection in your epinecium, in your matrix, then that can make your nail fall off and it would probably grow back again, but you can cause damage, and we don't want damage, we want pretty nails. The best way to treat the cuticle, the epinecium, without cutting it is to just moisturize it. So for now you have pushed it back and off the nail, so that's left the nail open for you to polish, and then just follow on with normal cuticle care of oiling, moisturizing your cuticles every day, and that will make the dry, dead, white area just shrink back, and your cuticles will be looking nice and healthy without you having to trim the dead skin around the cuticle area, and it prevents you from causing any damage, accidentally nipping any live skin. I do, however, use the cuticle nippers to cut off any hangnails on the sides of my nails. You do also want to be careful when you're trimming hangnails. You want to make sure you are cutting them, clipping them, not grabbing them and pulling them, because if you pull them then you can rip the hangnail and that will cause damage as well. And that brings us to the end of our prep video. So that has been my steps that I do for gel polish prep. And this is just a glimpse of what I'm going to do in the next episode, which is gel polish application. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about in this video, please don't hesitate to ask down below. There are no stupid questions, and I'm happy to clarify anything that I've mentioned. There may be some things that I skimmed over too quickly or didn't explain very well. The next video in this series is going to be out next week, but I should have another nail art video up in the meantime. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you can be notified when I put up my next basics episode. See you next time.